Welcome, everyone. It's Matt, and today we're going to talk about the July 2025 Steel Analysis, which is basically the Steel ranking tier for all of the Dynamax and Gigantamax Pokemon that have a Steel Fast attack. So we're going to start with Dynamax Rookidee. Rookidee is weak to electric, ice, and rock, but it is strong to bug, fighting, grass, and ground. CP is between 34 or 344 to 380, with 380 being the hundo. Stats being pretty mixed overall. It upgrades to Corviknight, which will be our Steel G-Max in the future. But currently, going from Rookidee to a Corviknight's 125 candy, but it's one of the few Dynamax that I will consistently, when I'm full, actually farm because I am a little short on candy still, and that's a pretty easy way to get some good candy. Corviknight, though, it actually has a difference in weaknesses. It is only weak to electric and fire. Corviknight takes reduced damage from Dragon, Fairy, Flying, Ground, Normal, Psychic, and Steel at 37.5%. And at 60.9% is Bug, Grass, and Poison. Fortunately, the only main one there is Grass, but overall, with its fairly strong reductions, it is a very good tank, especially with its defense at 192 and its stamina of 221. Its attack, though, is really, really low. And honestly, for a G-Max, it is not going to really compare to some of our better steel types as well. So I'm wondering if Corviknight's going to have some type of ability to strengthen defense or something to counteract its weak attack. Corviknight's fast moves, we have Steel Wing, Air Slash, and Sand Attack. The only 0.5 is Sand Attack, which it is not very strong with, which also means that it will even hit weaker. Generally, you're not planning on using this to do Dynamax, so it's okay to use the 0.5-second move. If you're stuck using this as a Dynamax, then Air Slash and Steel Wing will do you more damage. But honestly, this is not really a good decision to use during your transformation, other to just get shields. For Steel, and we're only going to talk about Steel, I include its other element if it is useful. As an attacker, it is the weakest of all the steel, and honestly, it's not even close. As a tank, it is quite good, but it is no longer the best. And as a healer, it's also pretty good. And in general, as an attacker, it's not horrible. There are much worse out there, but steel is a pretty strong attack group. As a tank, it's a better than average, but steel's not really the greatest tanks, other than one. Well, two actually now. And then we also have, as a healer, it's okay as well, but honestly, there are much better healers out there. All right, next one's Pidove. I know it's Pidove, but I'm an engineer, so I call it Pidove. I love my pie. Um, Pidove takes increased damage from electric, ice, and rock. Takes reduced damage from ghost and ground at 39% and 63% bug and grass. The IVs you're looking for is between 443 and 484, 44 being your hundo. Stats are also mixed, very close to Rookidee. Unfezant has the same strengths and weaknesses, as we do not change any of its elements. Its evolutions is actually relatively cheap at 62 candy. Not too many Pokemon have this type of transformation. My Unfezant candy is incredibly weak because I've got a couple of hundos, and I did upgrade my Unfezant for a while. Its attack is actually pretty high up there, which is honestly surprising for a lot of trainers, unless if you focus a lot on your flying and or steel. Defense is pretty low, and its HP is on the average size. Fast moves, it has steel and a flying type. That's why it is part of the steel group, as it does have a steel, even though it is flying and normal. So it does not have the 20% extra bonus. But with its high attack, it still is better than, at the very least, Corviknight for damage. It only has 1-second moves, which is going to be a pretty common theme overall. And overall, I did not include the steel, but as an attacker, it's about a 5. A tank, it's a 1. And a healer, it's a 3. All right, we're going to go to Machamp. Machamp takes increased damage from Fairy, Flying, and Psychic. And it takes reduced damage from Bug, Dark, and Rock. CP is 678 to 730. Once again, this is a fighting type. That's why it has really different sets here. It does have a fast move, which we'll talk to. But right now, we've got Machamp. We're not looking at any differences here. Still just fighting. The Machamp does have good attack with pretty lousy defense and good HP. Very common to most fighting types. And the what you're looking for here, it's pretty expensive. It's still 125 for the evolution. And with that, it does have 3 different fast attacks, but they're all 1 second. Bullet Punch here is your steel type, which means, yes, you're going to lose some of that attack bonus overall. And I don't have it here, but as an attacker, I rate it as a 5. Tank is also a 1. And as a healer, it's around a 7. Next is Krabby. This is a water type, but it does have a steel fast move as well, so it will fit. Krabby takes increased damage from electric and grass, and reduced damage from fire, ice, steel, and water. Its overall stats, the attack is really high, especially for what is basically the initial or beginning Pokemon. The IV, 835 to 892, so that's your hundo is 892. It has okay defense, but pretty low HP, which is its biggest weakness. Kingler just requires 70 candy or 50 candy overall, not too hard. Does not change any of its weaknesses or stats as it stays water type, but you can see its attack is the highest of the 3 so far that have been without this steel type element. Its defense is 184, and its HP is just really low. Its fast attacks, Metal Claw is an ideal fast attack at 0.5 seconds. It actually also has Mudshot. I actually prefer my Gigantamax Kingler to have Metal Claw because of the speed bonus. But as you can see, it's only water type, so a D-Max Kingler will not have the 20% extra damage in general. So that makes the as an attacker around a 6 for the Kingler. Tank, it is roughly mid-class for steel, and as a healer, it's also a 1. Next is Dribbler. Dribbler takes increased damage from grass, ice, and water. Takes reduced damage from poison, rock, and 60.9% electric. The Dribbler IV has a 786 is your hundo. And for Excadrill, it requires 50 candy. And it changes its weaknesses and strengths to something that is a lot more interesting. It is weak to fire, fighting, ground, and water at 60% extra damage. And it takes reduced damage of 37.5 to bug, dragon, fairy, flying, normal, psychic, steel. 60.9% electric, rock, and 75.6 poison. Its attack is very nice at 255. Defense is low at 129, and its HP is good at 242. Its fast moves has 2.5 seconds. It is very flexible on both of those. So all in all, to be quite honest, it is a very useful unit because of that 0.5. Its big weakness, though, is its defense, but with its resistances. As an attacker for steel, it is quite good. Tank-wise, I put it as a 1 for defense, but if you really are going to take a look, it has some abilities to actually tank of around, I would say, better than half of the steel types because of its resistances and uniqueness, and it is the best steel healer. As an attacker, I still rate it 8 out of 10. Yes, and it does not have a Gmax. The tank is 2 out of 10, and that's still a little low because of its resistances, but I'm still basically basing it more just on pure defense for these right now. And the healer is still pretty good at 7 overall of most Pokemon. Obviously, Blissey and Snorlax kind of really distort that for the 9s and 10s. But all in all, Excadrill does have a lot of uses and can heal as well, which makes it a very versatile Pokemon. Next is Beldum. Beldum is or was the top of the line for both Steel and Psychic. It is still by far the best Psychic Pokemon out there, but thanks to our recent Go Fest, Steel has been dominated by two very obvious Pokemon that you know is coming soon. Beldum does take increased damage from Dark, Fire, Ghost, and Ground. So basically, it has a large amount of resistances, though, to counteract kind of two pretty popular ones. And it has resistances to Dragon, Fairy, Flying, Grass, Ice, Normal, Rock, and Steel. 60.9% to Poison and Psychic. Overall, Beldum's stats are pretty low, so it makes it, as a 3-star, it does have a decent amount of stats. But as long as you know to use Fire on Beldum, you'll be fine. Metagross, though, has the exact same strengths and weaknesses, requires 125 candy for evolution, but its stats are pretty locked across the board. It was pretty nuts that this was one of the first Pokemon released, and I do remember that it was pretty hard for 3 stars, at least at the beginning, because really there was not that many Pokemon that was really countering, and you were pretty much had to use Charizard in order to do enough damage to actually get through Metagross. Its attack 257, defense 228, and HP is slightly above average, makes it a very strong Pokemon. Its biggest weakness was until about 3 months ago, it only had 1 second moves, and it is a Steel and Psychic type. But now with Fury Cutter with Bug, it does have a 0.5 second move. The only issue I have with Fury Cutter is that generally Metagross is a very top-end attack Pokemon. Now we're going to be using it more as tanks, so the Fury Cutter is less of an issue because it does not have the ability bonus, so it's not a 20% for Bug. My other big issue is Bug is not really a super useful element in general, but if you're using Metagross as a tank, and as long as Bug is not resisted, it's 0.5 seconds, which is better than the 1 second attacks for Bullet Punch or Zen Headbutt. But if you're going for Psychic, you're stuck with Zen Headbutt because Metagross is our only Psychic unit right now. And honestly, this is the biggest issue that some trainers had was with the 1 second, but his power was so much larger that it kind of didn't matter as much. This is probably the only Pokemon, at least especially in Steel, that it's really 777 for attack, tanker, and healer. Honestly, for a healer, though, in the general Pokemon standpoint, it's a little less, but for Steel types, it's still around there because, fairly honest, Steel type just doesn't have the super amount of HP as some of the other types. But in general, it is a very useful unit overall. My Metagross was level 50, plus best friended, plus had everything stacked upon it because I use it so often. Now at this point, it's kind of a secondary tank. And as I said, if I need a psychic attack, Metagross would be used there. But honestly, it has finally, after 9 months, really, a solid run as being an S tier. Now it's kind of a B tier. And here's where we get to our top of the line. At this point, until we get another Zacian or Zamazenta fights, we won't really be able to get any more. And I don't think, let's see, the last time we've had energy like this with the Necrozma, I think we had a makeup event. And honestly, I'm hoping that we do get a makeup event for Zacian and Zamazenta, because quite frankly, I really didn't get that many shinies, and that was really frustrating. But Hero of Many Battles, remember, this is not Crowned, this is just the regular Zacian, is a fairy type, has Poison and Steel as its weaknesses. It is strong against Bug, Dark, and Fighting, and has a 60.9% strength against Dragon. Its attack, defense, and stamina are all very top-notch. The hundo here in Discovery, both for Zacian and for Zamazenta, is 2100 versus 2188, so the hundo is 2188. I did not get a single hundo, but I did get 2 floors, one Zacian, one Zamazenta at 2100, which is really frustrating. Crown Shield Zacian, though, adding the Steel type, which is by far the most important, really changes a lot of things. Zacian isn't as good of a tank as Zamazenta, but might actually have better damage resistance and last a little bit longer, especially with Bug and Dragon. But it is the by far the best attacking Pokemon that we have, and honestly, with its stats, there'll be some changes, and I think if we get the regular Eternatus, it still won't be as high of an attack, but very close. I gotta really look at the numbers; they'll be really close to each other. If it's the ultimate form of Eternatus, then that's going to be thrown out the window. But right now, I'm going to have an own video there, and I don't want to get too sidetracked here. Crown Sword Zacian is only weak to fire and ground. They are pretty common, but the good news is fire units generally have ground or vice versa, and so that's kind of a good combo to be only weak to, as that really limits a lot of other families from becoming a problem. I swear that basically the rest of the elements it's strong against. It's 37.5% strong against, or resistance against Dark Fairy, Flying Grass, Ice, Normal, Poison, Psychic Rock. 60.9 double resistant to Bug, and triple resistant to Dragon at 75.6. Its fast moves are Metal Claw and Ice Fang. The charge moves, we have the Behemoth Blade here, but it acts like a Gigantamax with Dynamax power. It only has 350 power. Even if you have Ice Fang, it will only be able to attack with Steel. So basically, from here on out, I'm only going to be treating this as a Steel type because of the fact, just like I treat fact with the Gigantamax. Its fast moves is Metal Claw, 0.5 seconds, which is a Chef's Kiss. That is the only move you want to use anyways. And as an attacker, it is the best in the game. It is stronger than Gmax, even though it does not have the additional 100 power. It's just that strong comparatively. As a tank, it's still top notch, and even as a healer, it's above average for Steel. And for tanking, it's above average still, even in all of the Pokemon, and it's slightly below average healer. My Zacian right now is, I have a level 50. It is a hundo. It is one of the older ones, but doesn't really matter. On top of it, I do have a max shield or max guard and max attack at 3. And honestly, it really kicks a lot of butt. I'll have some videos a bit more on that probably later, but right now, it is by far the best attacker in Steel and in the game. Zamazenta, hero of many battles, is a fighting type, so it's weak to fairy flying and psychic. Sorry. It is strong against Bug, Dark, and Rock. It's very similar to Machamp. The only difference is its stats are a little bit better. I already told you about the hundos for the CPs. So for the Crown Shield Zamazenta, adding Steel to it basically just makes it weak to fighting, fire, and ground, which is very similar to Zacian. You just add fighting. Zacian was neutral to fighting in general. So Zamazenta, though, has 37.5% resistances to Dark, Dragon, Grass, Ice, Normal, Steel, and 60.9% to Bug, Poison, and Rock. Its stats, its attack is actually in the top 6 of the game right now. Its defense is second to none, and its HP is similar to Zacian. Same issue here. I'm not even sure issue is the right word. Same status here. Metal Claws, 0.5 seconds. The only move you want to use. Zamazenta can only attack in its Dynamax form with Steel. So it's a 350 power attack that is only locked to Steel. So even if you were using Ice Fang, it would still attack as Steel type only. But generally, that is not an issue, as you're still going to be using the 0.5 second move for Metal Claw, which makes it a absolutely fantastic tank. Stats, attacker, it is 7 out of 10. It's roughly on par with Metagross. It's slightly stronger, but it's basically on par with Metagross. As a tank, it has no equal. I will talk about why it has no equal in the next couple of topics. As the healer is the same as Zacian. Attacker, it's slightly weaker than the Steel form, still 6 out of 10. Still the best tank out of the game and best damage sponge. And on top of it, as a healer, it's okay. My Zamazenta is also, I've also have one hundo left over for the one of the beginning fights. I have it level 50. The two Zamazenta and Zacian, I'm still trying to best friend. I do have max attack and max guard, also level 3. And let me tell you, Zamazenta and Zacian create one heck of a 1-2 combo. So, Crown Sword and Shield both have special abilities. Zacian has a boost where every 5k Stardust and 6 candy, I believe, it's 5 or 6, I apologize. You'll get a 10% boost in offense in normal raids or 5% boost in max raids for 6 minutes. It is not a very large boost, but it still does give you a boost. It is only for you, so it does, I believe, stack with a max mushroom if you need that extra attack. You can have this up to 24 hours at a time, but you needed to do 2-hour bursts, and you can move the counter up to 24 hours total. But that is incredibly expensive, and honestly, you just put it on just before the battle starts, then you join in, get started, and then run through. And once again, this only helps the trainer that uses it and not the entire raid team or lobby. That is a little frustrating, but I understand why Niantic/Scopely did that. It would be really powerful, especially if one person, aka like me, had a whole bunch of candy and was okay in just showing it and helping the rest of the team. But it will get expensive pretty quickly. Zamazenta is what Zacian does, except it is in defense instead of attack. So you get a 10% boost in defense in normal raids or 5% boost in max raids for 6 minutes. Honestly, Zamazenta is really only useful for Zamazenta because of its other ability, which means during max raids, you will start with a shield. Shields generally give you just more HP. They're basically temp HP, if you don't know what that means. During the battle, at the very beginning, as long as you have a max guard, whatever your level is, so if you've only got max guard level 1, you get 20 additional HP on top. So if you had 180 HP, it really is 200 out of 180. And once you get below that, then you start taking, or you take away the 20 shield HP with like a 22 attack. You take all 20 shield first, then you have 2 HP left to go to 178. And when you transform, you can obviously do up to 3 shields, but because you start off with a shield, Zamazenta, and I have tested it, you can have a max of 4 shields, which at level 3 means you have an additional 240 HP. Shields, and I do have these in my comment, or not comments, but the section below. Shields give one other benefit. Generally in max battles, shields will draw a single attack to the Pokemon or trainer that has a shield. If there are 2 or 3 Pokemon with shields, then you could spread away single damage. Single damage is much better than area effect because obviously only hitting one trainer is better than hitting all 4 trainers. And with Zamazenta, because you could pull in that before the first transformation, it really helps if you have a mixed group of strong and weaker trainers. If you're in a group with some weaker trainers, you might be able to keep them not fainted for more than just the first transformation. And I've seen some battles where they actually fall before the first transformation. And that really does help with damage output in general. Now, if you got a group of 24 that are all level 40 and above, then it's a little less needy, but still Zamazenta with its resistances is able to damage sponge better in general and has a much higher attack than Blissey specifically. The only issue with them is the crown cost for upgrading skills and levels. I know I've talked about this before, but I really do need to hammer this home. My suggestion is you go to level 40 initially, get your max attack and max guard fully upgraded. So that's a 550k Stardust, 618 candy, and 110 candy XL, and 1,000 energy for each. That's still an expensive 1.1 million Stardust for the 2. If you are going for the full 40 to 50k, You're going to spend almost 2 million Stardust for the two. You're going to be really 1.95 million. 828 candy for each and 461 XL candy and that 1,000 energy. And honestly, that XL candy is just way too much. I ran way too many battles myself, but I really have fun raiding in general, so I kind of went that way. So I can afford to bring up another Zacian or actually, I might be able to afford to bring up 2 Zacians and 1 more Zamazenta. But honestly, I'm just waiting for a very high hundo for each or a 98 shiny. That'll be kind of my crown that I'd like to use more for flex than anything else, to be honest. But all in all, it is pretty expensive, and for a lot of trainers, you may only be able to focus on one. And I highly suggest that if that is the case, and you guys kind of go as a group, 3 of the 4 trainers get Zacian, and 1 out of the 4 trainers get Zamazenta. Personally, I think Zamazenta is better, but I tend to think more of as a tank than as an attacker. And I know that a lot of other trainers don't think that way, but that's how I'm hardwired. So, but generally, I have both, and I do plan on using both for the great long haul. All right, all this. Now let's take a look at the damage capability steel. And what we could see here is Zamazenta, Excadrill, and Metagross are all second tier, practically the same. Difference between Zamazenta and Metagross is less than 4% at level 20 and less than 6% at level 50, with Zamazenta being slightly weaker than Excadrill and Metagross, who are basically tied. But Zacian is another 45% higher at level 20 and almost 60% higher at level 50, which is just absolutely incredible on how much difference Zacian has just in general. Corviknight right now is at 0%. Gmax will be adding around 25%, so it will be stronger than Unfezant, Machamp, and Kingler, but that is literally only because they do not have the steel type ability or affinity is the better word, not ability, sorry. So the affinity is not there for the Unfezant, Machamp, and Kingler, and if it was, they would even be stronger than Gmax from the attacking in general. And I know I've been asked, why don't I just put numbers there? If you look at the damage function, it's 1/2 times power times attack by defense. So the defense is based off of the Pokemon that you are fighting in the raid. And that varies wildly between 1-star and 5-star, and could or 6-star even for Gmax, and it varies widely based off of the type and what Pokemon it is as well. So I assume that they all have the same defense, and that will just tell you the one attack of one attack of Zacian is equal to 2 full attacks of Corviknight. Basically. And it is actually 1 attack of Zacian is worth 2 and change at level 50 for Corviknight. So, in general, you're just seeing the absolute power that Zacian has. And even Zamazenta, which is the shield portion, still has almost as much attack power as Excadrill and Metagross, yet has much more defense. I think Zamazenta has better, for the most part, resistances. But what's interesting is Zamazenta, Excadrill, and Metagross all have completely different resistances. And with this, Steel has the most flexibility of any of the elements that I've seen so far. And it is actually kind of interesting in general. But a lot of simple, and I'm going to be changing up my Gigantamax, especially, and the 5 stars. Because honestly, the answer is going to be usually Zamazenta, but I'm not going to just make it that easy. I'll have other units or Pokemon that you can use, so don't worry about that. But quite frankly, Zacian and Zamazenta are just too powerful right now compared to the rest of the Pokemons that we have. Finally, we have our top 2 Steel units for each role. So our best attacker right now is Zacian, followed by Metagross, but to be quite frank, Excadrill and Zamazenta are 2B and 2C respectively. Metagross does make it in general, But if you're also really looking into it, Excadrill might actually be a slightly better attacker because it has a 0.5-second attack move. And also same with Zamazenta. But talking just pure power, Metagross barely draws it out. So 2-3, 2A, 2B, 2C. You could pretty much mix and match. Excadrill will always be slightly ahead of Zamazenta in my mind for attacking, but the differences are so small that it really doesn't matter. For steel defenders, though, Zamazenta is head and shoulders above, followed by Zacian, and then the next one is going to be Metagross. And the best healer right now is going to be Excadrill, just because it has the most HP, followed by Corviknight. And yes, Corviknight might not be as good of a tank as Metagross or Corviknight's a better tank than Metagross, but I still prefer using Metagross because Corviknight just doesn't have the attack overall. And with that is a pretty long talk about the steel units right now, currently for July. I don't expect to come back to this in the near future, as I think steel right now is going to be kind of ignored. I expect Dragon to be the next couple of months between Latias, and Eternatus. I know it's not been absolutely confirmed, but come on, you've seen the video. It's been confirmed. With that, though, that's all I'm going to really talk about today. I hope you guys do enjoy. There'll be a bunch of other videos that should pop up here that you could see some of the other elements. I'm going to start recovering a couple of those elements again as we're getting some new ones, especially water. But I'll also try to cover some of the other elements I haven't covered yet as well within the next month or so. I do apologize for this series kind of taking a month hiatus, but quite frankly, in June, there was just too much for me to do. A lot of that was because of GoFest New York City, GoFest Global, that I kind of just had to tread some water. And now I'm back fulfilling some of these tier requests that I know a lot of people were interested in. With that, I promise to do better next time, and enjoy, trainers, and have a good day. Bye, everyone.